All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Speed Street, the Speed Street podcast. We appreciate everyone for being here. If you're listening, please continue to listen. I feel like I sometimes talk about the YouTube, but we want to make sure that you're listening on the podcast platform. Well, the Apples, the Spotifys, the Googles, the wherever you find podcasts. We appreciate those listening. Please feel free to share the podcast with a friend. Maybe, hey, who knows? Maybe there's someone who needs to know about a new IndyCar podcast. And if you're on the YouTube, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, and then you might know, hey, I'm going to turn this little notification bell on, and now I'm going to know even more when these episodes come out, so I can check it out and we can learn more about IndyCar racing. We have a lot to talk about. We had a great race that happened at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. We had I feel like now a consistent friend of the show, Alex Palou, is on with us this week. He's at the airport. He was at the airport chatting with us. A lot of cool things to talk about. We ended up starting to talk about life too, because we've talked to him so much about racing because he wins all the time that now we're talking about life, what's it like to be a dad, so that's kind of cool. And we get his thoughts on the Indy 500 too, which I always enjoy. Like now that we're post Indy 500, I think anyone who we haven't talked to after the 500, I always like getting their thoughts. And we saw that with Will Power. So the lots of news. The IndyCar race itself, my gosh, we didn't get on USA Network at all. That's a big topic that I think we have to debate. I think it made a lot of people upset. It made me upset, even though I was there, so I obviously wasn't having to watch. But that's kind of how business works. We'll talk about a little bit about business. But before that, I'm going to get to Chase here to see how everything's going. Chase, another IndyCar race. Fanhood is increasing. I can tell you're locked in for these races and trying to figure out how we get to where we get to by the end of it. Enjoyable. I thought it was an enjoyable race. I really did. There was a lot of strategy, as we talked about before, but some good racing as well. Definitely not as chaotic as last year's race.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. Shout out to everyone that got to watch over on Peacock. Because we didn't get it quite on USA Network.
CNBC. I don't really know that CNBC still exists, but apparently it's on CNBC too, which was that was a real shame. I can't believe that.
Oh, big financial markets race.
Yeah. So there were a bunch of people trying to learn about the price of Bitcoin and like where Apple stock's at, and all of a sudden they're watching an IndyCar race.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's usually the thing that I like to do. That's usually how I spend my Sundays. So getting into it though, we had a great weekend. Wife's birthday weekend, so we were out of town. Went and had a nice little time down by the beaches of the Gulf, and
nice.
And got to take the kiddo to do some fun stuff. But aside from that, Sunday was locked in 100%, watched pretty much all the races. It was supposed to be like, the big day of racing, right? You're supposed to start off, you had your F1, you go to NASCAR. Yeah, finish off with IndyCar. And typically it's F1 to IndyCar to NASCAR. This time it's like IndyCar gets to be the one to end it all out for everybody to watch. Fantastic race at Laguna Seca. Didn't quite play out that way, but still a great race nonetheless. Had some good talking points. Big moments as well. I learned that you're not supposed to jump the hill at the corkscrew.
Yep.
That's not looks cool, not a good thing to do. But aside from that, man, I would say another successful weekend as far as the racing goes, and just another great step forward as we get ready to enter into this hybrid era that we're coming up on now. So yeah, I'm excited to talk all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple high-level points. Alex Palou obviously winning right back to the points lead. There was a lot to follow with the obviously in our last episode, we were kind of like live getting updates on Nolan Siegel's situation with McLaren, so that kind of became very evident. Also, something I forgot to mention, I raced ARCA on Friday. So I raced in the ARCA series, made my ARCA debut. Before we get into IndyCar, maybe, and I'm sure there will be people that are like, what is ARCA? I don't want to hear about this. I just want to hear about IndyCar racing. But guess what? This is my show, and I'm going to talk about a race that I did. So I'm sorry. I get to share with you a little bit about what's going on, and also maybe clear up some points that maybe people thought. So we show up to this ARCA race with Rhett Jones Racing. Very cool. Cool opportunity. It's part of a couple other deals that are going to be announced very soon that, again, kind of, if you're a listener to this show, you know that I keep, there's like an impending announcement streak. We've definitely got more races to announce, which is cool, in the NASCAR region. So that'll be very cool. But this kind of opportunity popped up last second, and good car. This is the same car that Noah Gragson was running in Sonoma at the ARCA race a couple weeks ago. And I called Noah, and Noah had a lot of good things to say about it. And it was a great car. The only thing is we didn't have any practice. So we get there, and we're at Mid-Ohio. Mid-Ohio, great track. Love Mid-Ohio. First time I've been on the new surface. I'm actually glad that I got to test on, or to drive on the new surface before the Indy cars go there, because I kind of have a little bit of a better idea of what that surface is like now, and kind of where the bumps have changed in the racetrack. But yeah, ARCA-wise, a lot to learn for me. Completely different car, but obviously it's still a stock car, so similar to, I guess, what I've driven in the Xfinity Series before in the past, maybe a little bit of the truck. But yeah, we only had qualifying, and went straight out there in qualifying. The general tire also, as well, is a little bit different to the Goodyear, so that was a new learning experience for me. Quite a different way that it was gripping the track. For me, the general tire had a much stiffer sidewall on it. So if you want to get real tech talk, sometimes people like to talk tech here about motorsport. But the Goodyear tire, when I was on the truck at Mid-Ohio, it felt like you could kind of turn into the corner and feel a little bit more of that grip in the center, and a little bit softer of a sidewall to kind of like, all right, I'm leaning into something. Whereas the general tire sidewall seems to be a bit more just stiff. So that generates more of a flat slide randomly. So you kind of have to get used to a bit of that. That's difficult in those cars because they're so heavy. But yeah, qualifying, we went out, did about 4 laps, I would say, 4 push laps. And then we were going to pit. It was a 20-minute session, pit and just kind of take the tire pressures down, maybe make a small adjustment. And then someone went off the track and the session was over. So I did about 4 laps before the race, which is such a shame. We qualified 9th, but we could have been way better than that. Hadn't even figured out where I needed to do a couple different things on the track yet when it comes to brake points and getting used to the systems of the car. But yeah, just to get into, I don't want to spend too long talking about this because obviously this is an IndyCar show. But during the race, learned a lot. Got through the first half of it, kind of made up some spots, figured out how the racing was going, figured out kind of who was doing decent, who was all right. Ran a lot with Marco Andretti. And then after the second, there's a little bit of a break in the middle of the race for if you don't watch it. We get new tires at the break, change some things around. I had no helmet fan or cool shirt. And stock cars are very hot, I've noticed. I think everyone can say that. But no fan, no air, no nothing at all that was helping me cool myself. And it was torturous in that car. I got to admit, I hate heat. I always struggle with heat. Physically, the car is not hard to drive in the slightest, but when it's hot, it just sucks in there. So I was really that was annoying for me to have to deal with no air, nothing, no cooling form at all. And it's obviously like the hottest day of the summer in Mid-Ohio. It's like 98 degrees, which is a shame. But obviously, everyone, first time in ARCA, might as well make it ruthless. Gotta
keep it hot.
Yeah. So we had a bit of we did have a spin. That I still believe was I think I got just a little bit of help, and people were asking if that was Marco Andretti because I had just passed Marco Andretti and it was not him. I had just passed him, and I believe it was the 2 car. Obviously, the 2 car was first in frame when the TV came back as I was kind of going off. And again, I'm not here. It doesn't really bother me. I kind of expected to be off the track at some point in an ARCA race. That's just kind of how it goes, right? And so I'm not trying to out here seek blame. There's no video, no one has any video of it. But I got sent off in a corner that's pretty easy to get sent off in, but definitely not Marco. For me, it looked like the 2 car. But also, I'm not gonna. I'm out here just saying, hey, these things happen. I get it. I'm a new person in the series. Completely understand. But it did ruin our chance at a top 3 finish, probably top 5 for sure. Because the car was much better than where we ended up. when we spun, the track bar broke too. So that means the chassis was essentially running around completely on 3 wheels. So we still finished the race kind of like we got a late yellow and passed a couple cars at the end there to be 8th, even though we were struggling kind of on. It felt like I was on 3 wheels. The left front tire was up in the air a few times. So, in the end, to finish 8th, we finished 8th in this ARCA race, my first ARCA race. I don't feel bad about that with all that we had to kind of experience. Obviously, I truly believe that car should have been in the top 3 and we could have run up there. We were getting much faster as the race was going along. But sometimes you get dumped. Sometimes you get spun out. Sometimes these things happen. Would love to have seen more detailed video of it, but Fox was covering another car that was going off. But yeah, definitely for those who it was not Marco. He raced me very hard. We actually had a great battle together for a long time. Marco, his car, I think, was probably a little bit in more of a difficult spot than my car. I think that car didn't quite have the pace that some of the other cars have. So he was definitely fighting it. But yeah, it was a good race. Good race with him. Fun to race with a couple of those guys. And you know what? We're undefeated on top 10s so far this year. So we're 2 for 2 for top 10s in races. So we can go from there. Chase, did you happen to see any of it all? I mean, you're a NASCAR guy, so you know that world.
Yeah, so I got to watch a little bit of it, caught up on it on the X, heard it on the X. Great ZZ Top song. But yeah, I went around and just kind of looked and obviously followed along with your tweets. I didn't get to sit down and watch it. We had just headed out of town for the wife's birthday, but I knew you were running. And in my mind, I was just like picturing you just like battling for a dub. We'll take a top 10. We'll take it. Because you can't really expect, you don't really know what to expect in an ARCA race, I would say. And especially at a road course. There's a lot of what I like to call dangies out there, and they're not always on you. So, just keep going at it. I know we got a lot more racing for you to come, so I know that I will be at hopefully at some of those races in person, and I'll get to watch every lap. So that'll be great.
So there's your ARCA racing report. That's something that is new to the Speed Street podcast, but there's the ARCA racing report. Dun, dun. Fun to get that in there. Honestly, just fun to be racing again. Had a couple things that we struggled with, but the Rhett Jones racing team was great. Great car. They had great people to work with. Honestly, it felt like I was just at home. So that was really, really cool. But yeah, let's get back into IndyCar. If you stop listening to the show already, you know what? We hope you come back. I think it's a great idea to come back. We have a lot of great things.
It's a sad day for them.
It's a sad day because we got a lot of things. I want to talk about a new segment
with IndyCar.
We got a lot of news to discuss.
We talked about the ARCA segment. What about the fortune tellers? I think that would be a good place to start. The IndyCar fortune tellers. Do you like that name first and foremost? Because you did really well this week.
Yeah, we did have podium predictions. Obviously, I love doing a prediction segment because it's a complete gamble. And people, when I tweeted it, it's almost like when we put it out there, our producer Bobby, thankfully, he gave us a great graphic. But it's like I think we put it out right before the race, so people assumed that this was like right after qualifying that we saw this. It's like, no, this is going into the weekend where we didn't know anything about who was going fast at all. We're just trying to make early predictions, and it always just stirs the pot because people are like, oh, I think it's going to be this guy. I think it's going to be this guy, and that's fun. But yeah, I went 2 for 3. I don't know why I didn't throw Rossi in there. Rossi's been right on the verge of a podium. And Marcus Armstrong had a tough day, definitely tough day. He got fenced by Lundgaard, so that was a yikes moment. Those guys have a little bit of beef, which I think we could talk about maybe later too. A low key beef that we don't know about. But yeah, that was we got some good podium predictions. 2 for 3. I got Colton and Palou, so we'll take it. But let's get to the results. Let's talk about the race. Obviously, Alex Palou, winner. Boom. We had Colton Herta second, Alex Rossi third, Grosjean. Honestly, I know people give Grosjean, some shade. Like, people don't like Grosjean, and he's done some stuff that is unlikable for sure. We get that. But man, Grosjean had a great day. I mean, finishing 4th for that team, I think that's one of their best. If not their best finish ever, it is definitely close to it. Grosjean and the Juncos Hollinger Racing Team, especially coming back after all their drama that happened at Road America, I'm really happy for them. I talked to Ricardo Juncos, good guy. And I like those engineers. The crew guys on that team are great people that I worked with at Carlin. So really happy for them. Kyle Kirkwood was 5th. He took the early lead, ended up kind of just where he was. Scott Dixon was 6th. Again, always finishing well, even though we have no idea where he was the whole day. Pato O'Ward was 8th. Will Power 7th. Pato O'Ward 8th. Santino Ferrucci once again 9th after a penalty, after driving people off in the warm-up again, and getting 5-minute penalties in the warm-up. Just, again, kind of the luckiest dumb person ever, I think. That's kind of the best way I could say it.
Great save.
Luckiest dumb person ever. That's it. And I don't know what's going on there, but that, and I also heard as well during this weekend, and we could talk about this later, there is a lot more Penske integration there than people think. So let's not that's very good. Again, Santino, talented guy. And apparently we might have Larry Foyt on this show at some point. I think producer Bobby said that maybe we have Larry Foyt on the show at some point. Can't wait to talk to Larry about that. So that would be cool.
Love that.
But yeah, Santino finishes 9th. Great streak of top 10s. Let's give him credit. You know what? He's had a lot of top 10s this year.
Talented driver.
Drives around. He was in a 3-wide moment in the corkscrew that sent Christian Lundgaard off flying to the sky, as usual. He even got a penalty. Got a penalty in the race for blocking. So he does a lot of things to himself to put himself back, and still ends up in the top 10. So again, kind of one of those things. If I don't really understand it, but sometimes these things happen. So good for them, the 14
Very
team.
talented.
Very excited for him. So not really, but sort of. Marcus Ericsson, top 10. He had a tough day in qualifying, but Marcus Ericsson in the top 10. That's a championship points day, even though he might be out of the championship fight. I don't know. Felix Rosenquist, 11th. He was running at the front in the beginning. We'll talk a little bit about their weekend. Nolan Siegel, 12th, biggest mover. Nolan Siegel obviously started at the back, new McLaren driver, the future of McLaren, was running around, kind of pounding around at the back. I was watching, trying to pay attention to where he was, what he was doing, and had a spin. He caused a yellow, had a spin. This is how this race kind of plays out sometimes when there's two strategies, when there's a lot of yellows towards the end. You can kind of find yourself cycling your way forward. And Nolan basically just did that. And again, we saw this happen at this race last year because you had the 20 car with Ryan Hunter-Reay finishing in the top 10 somehow, even though they were slower than snails, essentially the whole time. And I think even Stingray Robb last year finished 12th. So that just goes to show you how Laguna Seca, because of how short it is, how quick the pit lane can be, and how the yellows play out, it's always an interesting one once you get outside the top 10. There's some people that kind of shuffle around, but still, that's not to take away from Nolan. He had a lot of pressure on him this weekend, coming away with 12th in IndyCar. We talked to Will Power about it on the show. Remember, finishing in the top 12, top 15 is hard in IndyCar. So good for him. Christian Rasmussen, 13th. That was crazy. That's got to be one of his best results of the year after having a big shunt in practice. So good for Christian, and happy for him. Pietro Fittipaldi, 14th. Christian Lundgaard, 15th after flying through the sky. David Malukas, a lot of chatter about him. David Malukas, great qualifying effort. 16th for David. They I think had to pit again, or had a flat tire. I believe he said he had a flat tire. Linus Lundqvist, 17th. That's another tough day for him. Augustine Canapino, 18th. Joseph Newgarden, 19th. Joseph Newgarden made a lot of mistakes, and I know I was talking some things about Santino, but Joseph made a lot of mistakes on that race. So I was very surprised by that, pure driver error. And so, these things can happen when you're pushing at the top level, and no one is safe.
Crazy moment with him too, by the way.
Yeah.
Right there coming up into the end where he just automatic, he was got up to second?
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, we'll talk about
we're going to have to talk about that too.
Yeah, exactly. So Joseph Newgarden just finishing in front of Stingray Robb, who seemed like he was off the track a couple times. Again, circulating, top 20 day for Stingray Robb. Just doing his thing. There's his teammates once again in the top 10. So tough situation.
He was
there.
Looking strong pre-race, dude. I don't know if you saw him or not, but he had some cold, cold as ice sunglasses on.
I saw that.
He did have a little bit of vibes to him, man. I'm not gonna lie.
I did see that.
It did. I mean, it circulated, but it still was vibes.
Yeah. So Scott McLaughlin, 21st. Difficult day for Scott McLaughlin. Got himself into a bit of a tizzy with his teammate. Hit his teammate. Will Power. Again, no one is. We will talk real talk about these folks. That was not a good situation. Not good to hit your teammate. That's not good. I love Scott, one of my best friends. Tough day. Marcus Armstrong as well. Got fired off by Christian Lundgaard. Kiffin Simpson, 23rd. He got hit by Canapino, and then he spun with a flat tire right in front of Graham Rahal. That was tough. That was just not a good situation. Really unlucky for Graham Rahal, who was finished 24th. That was a
crazy wreck.
Yeah, that was a big one. That was not fun at all. Jack Harvey had an engine explode. Yeah. Rinus VeeKay, 26th. They had, I believe, a gearbox issue he put out there. Real rough stretch for both of those ECR cars. Tough to see for them. And Luca Giotto had a big shunt. He was the first of the yellows. So yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about. But also a ton of penalties this race too, right? Like if you just read through the penalty report, you had the 2 car with an improper pit exit. You had the 8 car hitting personnel. You had the 30 car improper pit exit. You had the 14 blocking, 20 improper pit exit. You had the 45 avoidable contact, the 3 avoidable contact, 11 failure to follow the directions of IndyCar, and the 78 avoidable contact. So a lot of people gathering a lot of penalties, which again, kudos to race control for making those calls. I believe that those things are necessary. But yeah, there was a lot that went on. Let's talk first about, we were just talking about it, but you asked, how did Joseph Newgarden get to second? Because a lot of people, I think, said the same thing. We were like, whoa, how did that happen? And it was all about the yellow being called. So I think people sometimes forget that IndyCar, when there is a car that has gone off, and it's maybe in like not a very unsafe place, and if they called the yellow immediately, they would immediately screw several people's races, right? Like if there's a couple cars that have stayed out longer, if they called the yellow, those cars would immediately just cycle to the back and their race would be essentially over. Now, what IndyCar has said they wanted to do, and again, this is something that the team owners also have encouraged, is that if you can let us cycle through the pits before you go full course yellow, that means that their races aren't ruined. So I understand it, but if you're on the other end, like the Alex Palou side or some of the guys that have already pitted, you're hating that, because with the Laguna Seca pit lane being so short and the timing line where you exit the pit lane being like pretty early on that front straight, Joseph was not only able to pit and not lose a ton, he came out second. And that's crazy. Like Joseph should have cycled out on a full green flag run. Joseph should have cycled out, maybe inside the top 10, but like probably not. And so I think several people had a few issues with that. But that has helped other people before too. So that's the reason that happened, Chase, is that they were waiting to call the yellow until everyone had pitted, and that did help some people. So Alex Palou was mad about it. He's like, oh, I remember, did you hear on the radio? He's like, oh, did they really wait to throw that yellow till the 2 car pitted? But clearly Joseph being second, he was not quick enough to be there. Like clearly he was not quick enough to be at the front. He got passed. He was making mistakes. No. He went off a couple times, even had a spin. So really tough kind of out of character weekend for Joseph Newgarden. So does that help explain that situation there, Chase, for you?
Yeah, it was just, I guess for me, it's just the fact that that's kind of the rule there, where they'll like wait to open that so you don't do that. It's just not typically, I guess, like, especially coming from the NASCAR side, like those things happen. They just kind of happen and things shift out the way they shift out. So it's a little bit different. But that's just, I guess, me kind of like getting around to understanding how things work in this realm. But yeah, that's what was crazy about it, is because you didn't see him all day really. And then of course you have like, some fans that maybe just have some biases starting these conspiracy theories and things like that. And it's like, no, that perfectly explains why. That's how it works in IndyCar. They gave him the opportunity to get there, but as we can tell by the results of the race, it didn't really matter a whole lot.
Yeah. And again, that's the
down.
Funny thing, right? It's very easy to go straight back into that conspiracy hole, but like this has happened for other cars too before. Like this has definitely happened for those that have been running out before. So again, I also was questioning it. Like I wish, I was like, wait, why has it not been called yellow yet? But this situation has happened before. They have waited for cars to pit. Sometimes it is the Penske cars though, because like they're at the front all the time. So like maybe that's why we see it. But if it was, if it was another car, I do believe they would have called it as well. So these things happen. Let's talk a little bit about the beef situation, the beef count. Is this a beef count? Maybe we got like the beef count is very high. We had
all-time highs right now.
Scott McLaughlin in the Good Ranchers wagon. I'm sure there's going to be beef between him and his teammate Will Power because Scotty went side by side.
That's what blew my mind the most, Connor.
Yes, it was. I mean, that was a wild move. And again, that corner too. That corner is a difficult one to pass in. It's about turn 5, I believe, or turn 6. I don't know. I always forget the names. But about turn 5, the left-hander up the hill, heading towards the corkscrew. But that's a brake zone, but it's a very short brake zone. But Scott went for it, and he lost the rear. It's easy to lose the rear there. And now with the brakes in these current cars, the brakes are a little bit different before we get to the hybrid unit. There's been a lot more rear locking with the brake system this year because the brakes are designed for the heavier car. I actually talked to the Performance Friction, the PFC folks in Road America a little bit. And they're just kind of working with the car as it is now, but these brakes are designed for the heavier car. So you've seen a little bit of rear locking, I would say, more so than normal in the past. And Scott got a bit of rear locking. He lost the rear and hit his teammate. And boy, that was a wild situation. And I believe it broke something on Scott's car as well because he spun immediately and then had to pit. But yeah, again, a lot of uncharacteristic Penske moves. Like you had Joseph going off the track, Scott hitting his teammate. Hey, maybe the voodoo was wild out there for Penske. I don't know. A lot was going on, but I kind of...
Some could call it a karma race.
A karma race, yeah, there it is. Yeah, I don't know. But it was crazy to see, but it's also, for me, it's exciting because it just shifts things a little bit. All of a sudden, we're not talking about Penske at all this race, like nothing other than the fact that they made mistakes, and we're calling out, hey, this is, a couple yikes moments of the weeks, you know what I mean? So that went on. Also, there's a little bit of Marcus Armstrong, Christian Lundgaard beef, I would say. Like Lundgaard and Armstrong went side by side into turn 4, and, Lundgaard tried to maybe back out of it, but Marcus didn't want to back out of it, and Lundgaard went a little side by side contact there. I know those guys from off the track, they might not. I don't know. That's a beef watch. We'll call it a beef watch. We'll give it a beef watch. Beef watch. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of, I think, what we'll have to pay attention to. They obviously race in Formula 2 together, and I've seen them interacting on nights out as well. So maybe it's a beef watch. Just beef watch there. You could tell Marcus Armstrong on the radio. He just said, he just sent me, which definitely happened. So that was kind of wild. A shame for Marcus Armstrong because, again, he was on my podium. So I was hoping that he was going to come through for a podium finish, but it didn't happen.
We'll call him the postmaster. He's sending them.
Yep, there you go. Exactly. So the whole Santino thing as well with Grosjean in the warm up. Again, that's going to turn into something that I think no one is surprised by, but that is going to get worse. Like something is going to happen where cars end up wrecked. I do believe that. I don't want to talk about it anymore because obviously we know how I feel about it. But again, it's risk and reward. It's what is your goal as a professional racing driver? Because you are driving a Penske car with AJ Foyt Racing, which is an amazing team, a great group of people, amazing engineer. Why waste your time doing dumb stuff? Why? I think there are many drivers around the series right now, including myself, who would give an arm and a leg to drive that car in its state right now. And people wouldn't have said that of AJ Foyt in the past. But with that Penske integration, with that partnership there, with Michael Cannon, who I still think is one of the smartest people that's ever walked this planet, I think I don't really understand it. So again, I think there's a lot more that could be done there, but it is what it is. So there's the beef talk. Harvey blowing an engine was a shame to see. Both coin cars struggling. That's going to be a battle for the leader circle. But yeah, I think I don't know what else I wanted to talk about. Oh, I know exactly what I wanted to talk about. The whole NBC thing is tough, right? So NASCAR had a rain delay.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be USA Network, which I turned it on in the morning when I woke up in California, and I was like, boom, here we go, 6 hours of Watkins Glen. Love watching a bit of sports car racing in the morning. It was supposed to go right into NASCAR and then into IndyCar. Now, the TV deal, of course, with Fox was just announced. So you have to know that we're probably not going to get favorable treatment from NBC. Now, and it's nothing against them, but that's just how it works, right? If our business is going away, there is no reason why they would want to help us, at least in raw terminology. Like NBC people, this is nothing against NBC people, but this is business, right? Like that's just kind of a rough part of how it is. So I hate to see it because, again, no one watched our race probably, right? I don't have a ratings tweet because I'm fairly sure they're not going to tabulate CNBC ratings and give it out there. And it's very
I think it's kind of pointless.
Yeah, it is essentially
kind of pointless.
I mean,
wasn't there.
It was supposed to be good too because a race from NASCAR running into IndyCar works out really well for us, and we did not get it. They had a whole rain debacle there, and I didn't get to see any of the Cup race. So apparently there was a lot of chaos and a lot of weird stuff that happened that, again, I don't know much about, but
they made history.
A real shame to see for us, though. Like that hurts us massively. It kills ratings on a race where I thought it was a pretty decent race to watch. There were some boring moments for sure, but there were also a lot of cool moments too. So that was a real shame. But that is how business works. Sadly, like no one is out here. Like NBC is not going to be like, well, you know what, we really enjoyed you guys. I mean, I know you're going on. Let's still try to help you out. Like money is money, and they know NASCAR is king, and so NASCAR is of course going to take it over us 1,000%. They're not going to move NASCAR to CNBC. They're going to keep them right there where they're scheduled to be. So I get it. It's a shame because in our hearts we're like, oh man, like what? Like we were supposed to have that time slot. Nope, not anymore. So that's a bit of a shame. Hate to see that because we're going to essentially have no one that watched the race. I mean, and when we needed that. So that was a bit of a shame. But I also wanted to talk about the Nolan Siegel situation. Obviously that developed a lot, right? So we saw a lot of tweets, a lot of wording going around. There's a lot of people, that are kind of discovering how this world works, maybe the business side. Nolan Siegel said that there was, he had a one-word response when, like, Adam Stern put a tweet out that said, was sponsorship involved at all? And Nolan Siegel said no. Now, sponsorship-wise, that may not be true, that may be true, right? Because he's not putting any logos on the car. And I like Nolan. I talked to him a lot about it. But as we've mentioned before, Nolan does have a lot of support behind him. He's got great family support, which again, this is not a bad thing because in the case of Stingray Robb, right? Like he did not win anything and like is going and has not done anything in his first year in IndyCar. And like that situation is again, probably where you're a little bit more frustrated by the fact that he's got so much funding behind him because it's like, if we want the best of the best in IndyCar, that's not it. You know what I mean? Whereas Nolan has been at the front. He just won Le Mans. Like he's a good driver. So not a lot of people question the support behind him. But this whole McLaren deal is definitely very interesting. Like I don't know how you can go through kind of getting rid of Theo when maybe Theo was so like there was a lot of people that had said that Theo. He just signed a lease in Indianapolis. I mean, and kind of is adjusting his life to be an IndyCar driver for this year. But maybe in his mind, next year he still wants to go to Formula One. So I see why McLaren would maybe want to have some sort of okay, if you're not committed to us, we want to move on to someone who is. But maybe, like, I'm not going to be the one to say it, but just think about maybe there's a financial element too behind the scenes of whoever's supporting Nolan. That maybe there's something that makes it a lot better. There was a lot of rumors that Arrow was going to leave, but then those were kind of squashed as well because I believe they still have another year on their contract or something like that. So there's again, this is the easiest situation to ever speculate about. And if you were like, I hear a ton, and I'm not going to share everything that I hear because I don't want people to stop talking to me, but there's a ton that you hear in the paddock about how it happened or why it's happening or this, that, and whatever. And I even talked to Nolan. I said, great job, man. And like, I was like, I'm happy for you. Like, this is a wild deal. I said, try to tune out all the BS, right? Try to tune out all the jargon that's going on the internet, all the other stuff, because again, you have a great opportunity here. This is an amazing group of people. You know, I've worked with a lot of your folks before. Just get after it. But to see him do what he was doing, and then to see David Malukas like qualify in the top 12, and then Nolan qualify like dead last, you're like, oh my gosh, here we go. Now there's going to be all kinds of, ability to just start throwing words around. But let's just give these guys some time, man. Like, let's just give them both.
Obviously, he likes to be in the back so he can move forward.
There you go.
That's a good biggest mover. That is literally what played out.
Nolan Siegel and I now have biggest mover trophies. We got the same amount of biggest mover.
There you go.
Oh,
shout out Nolan.
But one thing
Lucas was looking confident too, man. He goes into every race weekend like that. Like, he's got this face about him. Like, you see that camera come, it's not a Stingray vibe. It's definitely like I'm about to get it. He's got that look in his. He got that stank eye kind of where he's just kind of like, I can't do the Malukas.
I was in David Malukas' pit box when he qualified and when he transferred through in Group 2 or to Group 2 in qualifying. A lot of people just going crazy in there, and that was really cool to see. Like, Jim Meyer was there; he was really pumped. The Meyer Shank, I love that team. They're a great group of people. I like to just hang out with them because they let me hang out and they give me water.
Oh yeah,
and so that's really nice. But like, his whole camp was pumped, and I talked to him a little bit. He's feeling good, and this was the weekend that was the biggest question. So now I don't think you can question the wrist at all. Everything's good because as long as he got through this one, you're going to be fine the rest of the year. He's got a week off now to keep doing some recovery. But happy for him there. And again, he showed up and showed what he could do right out the gate. You know what I mean? The race didn't go well, but he was running in the top 10 most of the day in the race. Not too far behind his teammate, even though both of them had a couple issues that they had to deal with. But one thing I think I wanted to talk about as well which is going to be an interesting subject, but we might just have to kind of think about it in the long run. Driver contracts, right? Like, we've seen there's been a lot of talk. And I know I talked to you a little bit about this before the show, Chase, but this is just a conversational topic. Feel free if you want to in the comments or on Twitter or whatever. Feel free to let me know what you think. But when a driver has a contract, you assume that's a legally binding document, right? And I know that I was in a contract, and all of a sudden I was kicked out of that contract, which technically was a breach of contract. But I am not, like, drivers. Like, we obviously see the legal battle that's going on between Alex Palou and McLaren, and that's still ongoing. But I think you're not going to see drivers just like, oh, well, they're not acknowledging my contract, so I'm going to sue them. Because drivers are a dime a dozen. Like, no team is probably going to want to work with a driver that threatens to sue anyone or that threatens to, do anything. Now, Alex Palou's in litigation, and he's in a lawsuit. But Alex Palou's a champion, and Alex Palou's winning. So that might be the other side of that argument. But for a guy like Theo Porcher,
you got to get yourself to a point to where you can actually do these things to where all that other is kind of shifted away.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of work that goes into it to be able to put your neck out there like that.
Yeah, but like Theo Porcher, he's not gonna sue McLaren. And again, we don't know what's in the contract, so this is pure speculation. We don't know how these contracts work. Again, I knew how my contract worked, and I saw, like, okay, that's not how you can do it. But, like, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? Like, I was obviously still getting paid out, and if anything, paid more money to not say anything, which, I still want to be involved in the IndyCar world, so in no way am I going to do any type of lawsuiting. And there's so much loose wording, I think, in racing contracts too, that maybe make room for these types of situations. But I talked to a couple different drivers about it, and maybe in the future there needs to be some sort of protection over some drivers' contracts. Like you can't just ignore a legal document. Like I think that's, no matter how it's going, we've seen drivers who are contracted to teams just get ousted. And, I don't know I don't know the wording in any of these drivers' contracts. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I obviously know from personal experience how mine looked. And, there was a situation where like, yeah, for sure, if I really wanted to, you could definitely go at each other in a lawsuit because of some sort of breaching of stuff. But this I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, but right? You win that. What's on the other side?
Yeah, nothing's on the other side. Other than just like, I have to deal with these people more. This is just annoying. And I don't win anything. But in the end, the team owners have the most
power.
Like
a club or like an association.
There's already a drivers association, right? Like we talk about things. Hinch is the head guy there, and I do believe that in the end, drivers are a dime a dozen, right? Like if one is maybe going to create a bit of chaos, well, I'm going to find another one, right? That's probably the same level. Like you're going to find drivers, and the teams don't go anywhere, right? Like the teams are always there. Drivers are a dime a dozen, but I do believe that there should be maybe some sort of protection over driver contracts or something to where it's like, hey, maybe we can't just dump people out when they've either like altered their lives to come into this operation. They'd be like, it's something to be thought about. I don't know, like, I don't know what the solution is. Everyone can say, well, just get better lawyers, write better contracts. But like these contract negotiations go on for a long time. And like, I think it's in the end, we as drivers are almost like drug
There's a deadline to it, like an invisible deadline, right?
Well, yeah, but like we're also like drug addicts. We want to race.
Like what I mean by that is like there's a time.
Yeah, sort of, but we want to race too. Like so, like we're like, oh, well, like maybe it's okay. And like in the end, if you don't sign with this team, then you don't get to drive at all. So there's a weird like we're like we got in the end like we got to race. You know what I mean? Like that. Like that's the most important thing for us. There's so few seats available. So it's just an interesting.
People don't
question.
see it like that. I don't think it's like you have that goal, that vision of like you want to just drive, like that's it. And like people think about money and everything else like that, but I really do think at the end of the day, like we all know getting paid is important, but like that itch to drive probably outweighs it a little bit sometimes. Yeah, it's like you need to be out there, like that's what's giving you lifeblood, And
like you don't see that in other sports, right? Like you don't say to Patrick Mahomes like, actually, we're going to get rid of you now, even though you're contracted to us. It's like, well, he's going to get a guaranteed amount of money, right? Like he's got a guaranteed amount of money. So even if he gets hurt, right? Like there's a guaranteed element of that contract. There's this, that, and whatever. But also in the NFL, like good players, they'll go to another team too. Whereas like, there's not a lot of seats in racing, right? There's a lot of seats. There's a lot of seats in the NFL. There's a lot of places where, things are more guaranteed in contracts. You don't often hear of a situation where it's like, oh, well, that's a contract breach, or that's so. There's just something there that I think is worth just starting a conversation. Like we had a driver in and then out, and again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe there was some other stuff that we will never know about. That's sadly the part of being an outsider looking in. But when you hear of a couple things in the paddock, and you're like, man, like drivers are kind of just getting thrown out like this, and I'm like, well, why do we even sign a contract? Why would you sign a contract if you know that a team is not going to follow it, or you could just kind of get kicked out at any time? Like that's a weird thing for us to do, because in the end, this is what puts food on our table. And so it's just there's something there. And again, I obviously want to drive for all these race teams. So, even though they're probably no one ever wants me again, but I will, I would like to see other drivers.
Hey, I was going to say,
I would like to see other drivers.
I was going to say,
maybe there's some sort of a safety blanket or just something to where it's like, hey, we have more respect for the documents that are in line. And if that's not the document that you want to sign, well, let's make some adjustments to it. You know what I mean?
You think we see a lot of 1-year contracts is what I was going to say. Like, do you think that if something was put in like that, you just see a lot of 1-year contracts for, a majority of the field, and that way it's like, I feel like it's a lot easier to honor that, but it's like, who really wants the 1 year?
Well, drivers always will want to sign more than a 1-year deal because then you can have security in your life. You know what I mean? Signing a 1-year contract is the worst because by August, you go through about 4 months of feeling secure, and then by August you're like, oh, I got to get this, I got to be employed again. You know what I mean? So that's why people do the multi-year deals. But that was just something I kind of wanted to bring up. Like, we don't know what happened to Theo Porcher. You know what I mean? Like the guy maybe just was trying to move to Indy. Maybe he still wants to go to Formula One. It's a lot of speculation, but like, just have a think about what it's like to, if you got hired to work at a job, you relocate your family, and then they all of a sudden just say, actually, sorry, we don't want you to work here. Like, see you later. And then, maybe they pay, like maybe there's something to where he gets paid out. I don't know. Maybe that's what matters. But it's just an interesting one to think about. So again, I don't know how the McLaren group works. It's completely, I know Tony Kanaan very well, and I'd love to talk to him about it someday. And I'm happy for Nolan, because I think Nolan, I'm excited to see how he does. I really am excited to see a young driver this is like one of the biggest chances a young driver, I would say, comparing this type of chance for a young driver is very similar to the Joseph Newgarden deal. Like Joseph Newgarden signed a 3-year deal right out the gate. Now it was with a lower performing team, but again, confidence for a young driver. I would say like the Sage Karam deal with Ganassi, when he signed with Ganassi as a young driver, that was a very big deal because a very, very good team. Marcus Armstrong signing right with Ganassi as a rookie, like that's a very, very good deal, strong deal. This type of situation for a rookie is almost unheard of, to go straight to McLaren, a top level team. Alex Rossi, like he went right to Andretti as a rookie. That's why he won the Indy 500 with the great team. And he's been a household name in IndyCar. So you got to get yourself in the right place at the right time. And so, it was just a conversation that I was like, hey, maybe there's a business, maybe there's a driver's, everyone gets scared of the word union. I don't think that's not what's ever going to happen. There's not going to be a driver's union, of course, but like there's, maybe there's an agreement where it's like, hey, there's going to be some additional line to the contract of like, some sort of protection to the driver. Who knows? I don't know. I'm obviously going to fight for drivers forever. So that's our legal talk.
I think it's a great idea. It's commendable.
Yeah. We'll certainly see. But now we've got a week off. We've got a bit of time before the hybrid era, right? So we're heading into a new era now. We've got I think if you haven't tuned into an IndyCar race in a little while, let's maybe tune in, because I think there's going to be a lot of just interesting stuff that happens. I think we're going to see some challenges for the drivers, some challenges for the manufacturers, some challenges for the teams. Sadly, I think you're going to see the big teams dominate right out the gate. But maybe there's a special story of like, hey, some people just nailed it right out the gate. The cars' balances are going to change. So you add a ton of weight with the hybrid. So now the brakes are going to be different. Now the car balance is going to be different. You're going to have to adjust to this massive weight gain of the cars, but also a bit of a power. And there's going to be a power increase with the random boost, the random energy that you can deploy and harvest. So the braking is going to change. The driving style is going to change a little bit. The car balance, like the way you mechanically tune the car, might be different. So there's going to be a lot to pay attention to. You could see some surprises. But realistically, in a time like that, I think we're going to see the big teams dominate right out the gate. But people are going to be trying to learn at an aggressive pace. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Do we have a list of people that have worked in the hybrid car already?
Yeah, everyone's had a chance to test it now. But obviously the teams, and we talked to Alex Palou a little bit about this, so stay tuned for that. But, Penske and Ganassi, like there's been Honda and Chevy both running a lot of tests for this system. But the bigger teams, of course, have run more. And that always helps no matter what. Now, in that testing, IndyCar does limit, like you can't make changes to the car. Like it's just pure manufacturer driven. And the manufacturers will tell you what to do and with the engine, et cetera, with the system, the hybrid system. It'll be interesting. I think there's a lot that we don't know yet, and we will find out. I think with that, let's get to Alex Palou. We have no predictions to make for the next race, because we're going to have another show next week, which again, I will have to do from a creative location. I think I'm going to be at Travis Pastrana's race shop next week, so it could be a creative show. Maybe we have Travis Pastrana and some of his boys on the show. I don't know yet. We're going to see how that works out. I'm going to be at the Nitro race shop at the Pastrana land, so that'll be an interesting one.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for some content around that. But with that, yeah, let's get to Alex Palou. We have a great chat with the winner, and I think you guys will enjoy it. All right, folks, this week on Speed Street, guess what? We've got another winner, but this winner is a winner that we have seen before. We kind of predicted that we'd probably talk to this guy almost every week. I've even got questions now about like your regular life and what you think about weather and like and other sports. Alex Palou is here. Yes, no big deal. I did finally predict Alex to be in the top 3 this week, and it all worked out. So no one can be mad when you come on the show. Chase did not. Chase was 0 for 3, I think, maybe. I was 2 for 3. So that felt good.
You can be angry with me, Alex.
Yeah.
What did you say, Chase?
Great win.
Oh, I didn't say anything, but I didn't have you on my picks. But
Okay.
but I severely regret it. I will say that. I do regret it.
It's okay. It's okay. You learn. You learn.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So obviously, Alex, great weekend for you guys. Pretty dominant once again. I mean, you've dominated that place before. You made everyone look like they weren't even in the same class of vehicle. Same strategy, right? It seemed a little bit difficult, though, at the start. Obviously, lost it to Kyle Kirkwood. Kyle Kirkwood had a good opening stint, but you sort of seemed like you were much quicker than him at the end of that stint. Was it just then, hey, trust the guys in the box, the pit box, you know that the strategy is going to play your way, you guys are smarter than everyone else, potentially?
Yeah, I mean, the car was amazing all weekend, but did a terrible start. It was bad. Like everything was bad when I first.
What happened? Did
started,
you get a bad
and then
shift,
also
or you just
no,
didn't nail
I
it?
just I did I'll let you know privately, but it was terrible.
Got
it was
it.
the worst thing that you can do, and it was
I
I'm
saw
a
you
bit
lock
ashamed
the
of
right
what
front.
I did.
I saw you lock
it was
the right
terrible.
front.
I have
Someone
no
asked me-
comments
someone
about
asked
my
me-
start.
I saw a video and someone asked me like, wait, why is his right front brake locked? And I was like, don't worry about it. Like that's just like speed talk. You know what I mean? Like that's just it's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. But anyway, yeah, I did that terrible start, and then we had a lot of pace. Kyle started struggling a little bit on tire deck, and we didn't. I tried to overtake, but man, it was so tough to overtake. Like he was very good out of the last corner, and I couldn't get him into 2, even with push to pass or anything. So it was tough. Then we lost again 2 spots to Rossi and Herda on that first pit strategy, which wasn't great. But yeah, we had to gamble. We did an aggressive strategy, too aggressive, but it worked out. So I'm glad that we made it. We made it work.
Yeah, you talk about the split strategy. That I found that to be very interesting. Obviously, everyone you had half the field on one situation and the other half, on your situation too. I was trying to figure out which one I wanted to be on, and I always kind of kept saying I wanted to be on whatever strategy you were on. And sure enough, when you pulled the lead that you did, tell people kind of what that's like, because in the back of your mind, you're probably not racing the people directly behind you. So you know that those guys are trying to fight through the weeds of the traffic, and you just have nothing but clear air. I feel like as a driver, that's what you want, right? You just want to be able to go out and attack.
Yeah, I mean that's what you want. But we were, in case there was a yellow, which we actually had. We had the yellow, it went green, and we had another yellow. That was really bad for us because we were losing laps of green to try and get a gap. I knew that I had to open a gap of like 20 to 25 seconds, 25 ideally, to go head to head with the leader on the other strategy. But again, if 1 lap or 2 laps before I pitted, there was a yellow, I'm done. Like my race is over. I'm like P20. I have to pit, and we're in the back of the queue with no options to overtake. So, yeah, it was great. I knew that I had to open that gap. I knew that the car that I had was capable of doing it. And on top of that, Colton and everybody else on the normal strategy, they had traffic. I think they were like P14. So I knew that even if they were running fast, they had to go through traffic and I could have clean air. Having that said, I was glad that I was on alternates during that stint. My alternates were amazing. And I didn't have any follow-up because it could have been that by doing, 10 or 12 qualifying laps, the rear starts to go and you start to have some deck. But everything worked out, man. I'm so glad. And from that point, once I left the pit lane and I saw that they were right there in front of us, I was like, okay, we're good. We have a lot more tires. We have a lot more fuel. And that kind of like opens our strategy and our options a lot more than for them.
Yeah, talk about a little bit of the differences of the tire too, because it looked like, and I feel, I obviously have not raced on the new surface of Laguna Seca yet. At least I don't think I did. But the restarts there, it seemed like if you were on the primary tire, that was a struggle. Like it was tough to get them warm. Was there a big difference you thought between having the red tire and the primary tire when they get cold on the restarts? A lot of these IndyCar races, I think people don't realize how difficult it is to kind of keep the heat in the tire for those restarts, and it's a battle.
Yeah, it was. It was close to, on a street course, when you start just like going on throttle and there's wheel spin, you brake and you lock, like there was like no grip. It took like a lap and a half to get the grip. And then once they were up to temperature, they were pretty close. Probably half a second quicker on the alternate, but nothing crazy. While on the starts and restarts, it was crazy, the grip, the amount of grip you can have on alternates, especially new alternates. I think some people went on used alternates and struggle a little bit to get them to temperature as the new ones. But that's what makes it so exciting, on the starts and restarts when there's like so many differences between tires. And I think this weekend was perfect because the alternates were faster and you could do a full stint without issues. And the used alternates, you had to be brave to make them work, and we didn't. So.
No, I love that. Chase, go ahead.
Yeah, Alex, again, congrats. I will know better next time when we go to Laguna Seca to go in your direction. I mean, you're such a machine at that track. Like, I was watching on the restarts, like, as we're coming up, and, like, obviously, like, it was a lot going on. I felt like it was a lot more cautions than usual. And for you to manage that every time, I mean, to perfection was, I mean, just, it was very mechanic. We'll put it that way. So definitely a machine at Laguna Seca. But I know that in order to get there, you had to have a lot of practice, a lot of time in the sim, a lot of time on the track. Did you ever pull like a Reese Gold or a Christian Lundgaard going into the corkscrew and like, do the Dukes of Hazzard, like over the top? Has that ever happened?
Thank you, Chase. On the sim, yeah, definitely. I mean, I saw the rep, and man, that hurts. Like, even if it's only like a couple of, inches, like when he lands, that hurts a ton. So definitely in the sim, I had that happen, not in the real life. But yeah, that was crazy. I don't know what he was doing 3 wide though. Like that was a ball move. Like it was pretty,
especially 3 wide dicey with Santino. That Santino in the middle, that's usually a dangerous one.
Oh,
no matter
was Santino? What. I did.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. Yeah, I mean, then it's like going 6 wide.
I was waiting for 2. I was waiting for 2 cars to hit it, dude. I mean, it was full send. It was great though. So I had to ask that question, obviously. And then, too, I mean, you get in the win now. You're, head of the points, everything. We're coming into some ovals, man. How are we feeling where we are at right now this second when it comes to ovals? A little bit better than before yesterday. Like where are we at, and which oval track specifically are you feeling pretty good about that's coming up?
Honestly, I think we've been progressing slowly, but we've been progressing since the beginning. I felt really strong last year compared to what I did the years past, where in Texas, I was able to battle for the win at the end with Joseph Amparo. So we got a third there. Then in Iowa, was a bit lucky with the strategy and so on, but still got a third and was battling quite a lot. Gateway, I think we were pretty fast, qualified like 5th. So I think we're getting there. And I know that we need to win at the Noble. So it's gonna be this year. I don't know where, but I'm working towards that, man. I know it's what we need to do. It's what's next. It's not gonna be easy at all. We've seen Penske, especially even on testing the last week in Milwaukee, they were like 1, 2, 3 again. So it's tough. We need to catch up as a team, but especially I need to catch up as a driver, and hopefully I'll do it. Hopefully in Iowa or Gateway. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. Kind of shooting the shot a little bit there. I feel like the confidence has to continue moving forward for sure. So keep shooting the shots.
I mean, it has to come. I need to wake up. I need to get it done, man. I'll
be the first one there, dude, with the biggest applause, man. You get that oval dub, Alex. We're waiting, baby.
It's definitely coming.
I'll do it. I'll talk to Connor a little bit before Iowa. After that pole that he did, he was flying in that car, man. I don't know how he did it. Probably he jumped a corner or something, because that was not a car to put on pole. But a part of that I think will be good.
Yeah, leave it to me to think people were, I'm not able to do it in a real sense of the word, but you know what? It happened. So it was good. But speaking of ovals, let's talk a little bit about Indy. We haven't talked to you since the Indy 500, and I've been kind of like, ever since the 500, I like to get people's thoughts on it. We talked to Will Power about it. He obviously had a really tough one. We talked to your teammate, Scott Dixon, about it. Obviously, you guys, for sure, I think, didn't really have the pace that you wanted no matter what throughout the month of May. That was very obvious. But you had a great race. Honestly, when it comes to points for the championship, yes, we want to win that race. Everyone wants to win. We don't really care about points. But I think you guys obviously just kind of took advantage of working your way up, being there at the end, and you had a decent day, right? Is that kind of what you thought? You knew that it was probably going to be difficult to fight for the win, but we got to get through here with as many points as we can get through here with.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, we knew since the beginning of the month of May. I mean, once we started being on track for really and pushing, that we're lacking a bit of speed overall. Our car balance wasn't great, so I was like, man, we need to get something. And luckily, the last couple of practices we did on race trim, we found something that worked for me, and I was a bit more comfortable. So I was happy, man. Honestly, it doesn't feel great when you finish P5 in the Indy 500, but it feels great when you know that you didn't have the speed and you did everything you could. We actually led one lap, which I was trying hard, but we didn't really have the ultimate speed to hold that position and to fight for the win. So I think we did the best we could. I overtook you on track, which was really tough. We were battling for a little bit.
Still hate it, yeah.
But it was a crazy race. Everybody had to play aggressive. Normally it's not like that. Normally it's a bit more calm, and then it starts to ramp up. But since lap 1, it was like a war. So it felt great to finish up there. And yeah, hopefully next year we can go there with a little bit more speed.
Yeah, no, I completely agree about the war. It was quite a battle. Let's talk, because we have discovered that you are leading the championship. You are having a fantastic year once again. Let's talk a little bit about what Le Mans was like. That was a bit of a different experience for you. That must have been cool. Difficult to get over there, right? You had to fly right from Road America. What was that overall experience like for you? I mean, it has to be amazing. It's on my bucket list. And I also want to know afterwards, what's on your bucket list for events that you want to do? Because Le Mans is a big one. You've done the 500. What else is on your bucket list?
So, yeah, the experience was amazing. It was fantastic. It was really tight. Yeah, flew from Road America straight there. We had a ton of media, then the driver's parade briefing, blah, blah, blah. Some practices on night. I couldn't really rest because there were some practices at 10 a.m. and some practices ending at 1 a.m. and then debrief. And I was like, so when do I sleep? Come on, let me rest, guys. But it was amazing. We led a little bit as well. I got excited 3-4 hours to go that we were up there, and I thought that we were going to have a chance, which at the end we didn't. But the experience overall was amazing. Was something that was on my bucket list, especially being so close to my hometown. like some of my friends and my dad were able to go by car, which they normally don't. Like normally it's a 12-hour plane ticket that you need to get to see me race. So that was cool. And the experience overall, it's amazing. Like having to suffer for 24 hours, once you are done, it feels so rewarding. So I want to do it again. What's next on the bucket list? I don't know. I don't have many things. What I have in my bucket list is to win them, like to win the Le Mans, to win Daytona. I would love to do Bathurst one day. I think that's a race that might be amazing to race at. And I think that's it. I want to win those races.
That's fine.
I gotta ask you, when you shave off that first oval win, do you think a Daytona 500's in your future?
Oh.
Well, I would not say no. Absolutely, yes. But yeah, I think there's a big difference between the first IndyCar oval win and going full oval. I'm here to win. So let's take it step by step. Yeah, but I would never say no. 100%.
Love it.
I like that. Hey, so real quick before we let you go, we obviously know you're at an airport, and we appreciate you doing this with us.
Yeah.
Hybrid era is now coming up next. There's been a lot of chatter about the teams that have got to do more of the testing than others. There's been a lot of chatter about basically a whole range of things. But we're essentially entering in the middle of a season, kind of a new era. Like the entire package is a little bit different. There's the potential for a whole range of things. How do you guys feel about it? Do you feel prepared? Feel everything on your guys' side that we're ready? And then what do you think overall it's going to look like? Can you kind of tell people, hey, this is how it might change the racing, and this is what you might see that might be exciting?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Obviously, it's sad that we end an era and that we go to hybrid, but at the same time, I'm excited. I think people, what they can expect is that the drivers and teams, they'll have more tools when it comes to the race. Like, it's not going to be a massive change. We're not expecting to have faster cars, but we're expecting to have more tools within the drivers and the cars to try and make more overtakes, to try and defend, to try and get some more moves, and I think it's going to play a big role. So the energy to use, it's going to be limited for a lap. Like everybody's going to have this, like you can only use this 10% of energy. But I can use it wherever I want. I can use it all on the straight. I can use it all on the last corner. So that will make like a second push to pass, which we know that makes for an interesting race. That's what they can expect. I think we're going to talk about hybrid for the first two races, and then we kind of forget about that. But it will still be there, and it'll be a good tool for the drivers. And I don't think that it's going to change the team's performance or the car's performance, but I'm sure that it will make for some teams or drivers to get, I don't know, accommodated a bit quicker, because there's a lot to do. Like you need to regen, you can regen manually, you have to deploy manually. Like it's going to be quite a lot of work. So it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward. Yes, we did some big teams did some more testing than smaller teams, but honestly, it was for the manufacturers. Like we had zero control on the test. Like we couldn't test anything. We were just doing laps. I remember I went to Gateway and I was just doing long runs, no changes. It was just more durability and getting data for Honda and for Chevy on the Penske side. So I think the small teams or medium teams, they'll be on full speed as quick as we are.
Well, mine froze up there for a second, sorry. But I think what I want to finish with is a real quick question about, and I completely lost this, so Chase, I'm going to go to you.
Yeah, no worries. So, Alex, one thing I know, we talked about nicknames, obviously, earlier in the year, Street Shark. I would say wasn't a street, kind of on the road. You have kind of like a thing you do when you get out of the car. It's pretty standard. You throw the ones up, right, for the dub. You hop out the car, and it's fast. It's quick. Like, the reflexes are impressive. I was wondering, you ever thought about switching it up, do a little rock on? Maybe
like,
get like some kind of signature victory lane thing going down?
I haven't thought about it, but if you have some suggestions, I can totally welcome them and try them.
I think you should make the metalheads proud. I think the next win you get, you should get out and you should hit the rock on. You should do that. Maybe do like a bow and arrow. You could be like the archer, hitting the bullseye. There's all kinds of cool tricks you could do. I just feel like a signature move is definitely needed at this point.
Okay, I'll think about it. I hope that we can put it to play and to show many more times because it's tough to win. But I'll think about it, and maybe we can come up with something cool.
I'm looking forward to the list.
I remembered what I was going to ask finally because I was my internet was freezing. This is it was a tough situation. I'm a podcast guy, and I didn't mean for that to happen. But I wanted to ask about dad life. What is it? How's it been like? You feeling good? This is my last question. It's obviously, you're getting into it now. You're fully locked in on dad life. You got even a new Bronco as well. Have you taken the kid in the Bronco? Like, it's an old new Bronco, but how's that going?
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm loving every single second, man. It's something that brings so much joy and happiness. Obviously, it's hard. It's not easy. Like, the sleep is not as smooth as it was, and it's and let's say that instead of playing Apex with my buddy Connor, I need to change some diapers here and there and take care of a baby. But honestly, it's amazing. I wouldn't change it for anything. And seeing her grow every day and doing little things like just holding herself up, sitting, I was like, oh my God, she's sitting by herself. Like, it's pretty awesome. And yeah, the Bronco is cool. Hopefully I can make some memories for her and for myself. It's in the garage now, in the mechanic. There was a small fuel leak. First one. But I know that's classic cars, so it's okay. I'll have to keep up with it.
All right, Alex. Well, I appreciate you.
Just wait until she's playing Apex with you. It's coming.
There you go.
Can't wait.
I appreciate you, man. We will probably be talking to you again. I'm just going to put that maybe out there right now, but appreciate you joining the show and being ready to do it no matter where you are. We're excited for the rest of the season. Hybrid era is here. But yeah, thank you so much. And we'll catch you maybe after Mid-Ohio. I don't know, but we'll see. So thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for having me.
Well, we always appreciate Alex Palou coming to talk to us. I mispronounced his name, which I'll never do again. He also just posted an Instagram post. I took his dad for a 2-seater ride, and he threw a lot of shade at me in the caption, which is a shame because I feel like we had a great interview with him. So Alex Palou, maybe he wants to get on the beef watch, the beef watch count. I don't know. So we'll see. Alex Palou, great guy, great driver. Obviously, I think. He's I don't know if I think we made championship predictions at the beginning of the year. I'm fairly sure he's going to win another championship, but I obviously don't know. So anyway, with that, again, we mentioned a week off before the Mid-Ohio race. That is the next IndyCar race up on the schedule. I will be doing some interesting stuff in the Travis Pastrana world this weekend, so feel free to follow along there. But with that, Chase, let's get to the Ricky Treadway random Indy 500 driver of the week.
The greatest event of its kind that's ever been run on.
Let's meet the drivers. Who will make up the field?
All right. This year was picked by Chase Hold'em. This year was picked by Chase. We got him involved. Chase, I think this might be a name that a last name that you might know of. This is a last name that I know of, but I did not understand. I did not know that there was a Sheldon Kinser and the Kinser family. I don't know if it's the same family as Steve Kinser and all the legendary names in the Kinser family. But Sheldon Kinser finished 32nd in the 1978 Indy 500. Looks like he had an oil pressure issue. Sheldon Kinser in the 1978 Indy 500. So Sheldon Kinser was born December 9th, 1942. American race car driver, Bloomington, Indiana native. Wild. Sadly, he died of cancer, but 3-time USAC Sprint Car Series champion. And then he did several Indy 500s. It looks like interesting. He failed to qualify for 3, but from 1975 to 1983, he was at the Indy 500. 3 of them he failed to qualify. His best finish at the Indy 500 was 6th in 1981. But yeah, inducted into the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame in 1992. Anything else you see there about Sheldon, Chase? You know the Kinser family, right?
I'm reading right now. Yeah, they called him Uncle Sheldon. And I'm
right?
reading there's a little story here I'm reading from the Herald Times. So basically, he had a lot of crazy stories from what I'm seeing. Most people in Bloomington knew Kinser's name before he went on to 6 starts at the Indy 500, won 13 straight races at Bloomington Speedway. So dominant on a dirt track, whipping around opponents on the outside. A bounty was put on him. There was money for beating the field, but some extra for beating Kinser in the process from the Herald Times. Yeah.
Wow. Hey, that's a real story. This is not Chase making up AI stories now. He's in the real internet. So
no, this isn't AI. There's an actual link to it.
Yeah.
There was a bounty. He was a bounty man.
That's wild.
And he had an offset sense of humor. Good guy. So had his own jokes. Not just a racer, a family man with an off-color sense of humor. He'd always tell some wild story that you'd never know if it was true or not. Sounds like my kind of guy.
Yeah, that's very cool. Sheldon Kinser. I did not know there was a Sheldon. I know Steve Kinser. I know the Kinser family for sure. That's pretty cool. So we learned a little bit about that. I'm sure some people will tweet me like, how did you not know that name? But, here we are. So thank you, folks. We appreciate you guys. Again, I am in California currently. I will be home then tomorrow when this episode is out. And then I will be traveling. I'm going to be doing this stacker car race or some race with Travis Pastrana in like Grand Rapids, Michigan this weekend. I don't know how to tell you how to follow that, honestly. I'm not really entirely sure at all. But then, going back to Pastrana land and doing some fun stuff. So stay tuned for some probably some exciting and potentially hilarious content coming from one of my favorite people in the whole planet, Travis Pastrana. And again, hopefully we can start announcing some of these next steps. The month of July is going to be quite busy, and on into August as well will be quite busy with some of the sports car stuff too that I'm doing. So appreciate you guys as always. And next week we'll be on the show. Next week, I don't know who the guest is going to be. I really don't know. There was talk of maybe Larry Foyt. I don't know. There was talk of maybe we'll just get some really random person from the racing world. Who knows? But until then, we will talk to you next week on Speed Street. Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.